22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call a police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from.
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
The struggle with ASU strike.
The Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.
Welcome to Global. A very good morning to you. Thank you everyone for staying with us here on Global Television. I'm Muyi Agumofwebe, welcoming you very especially to Global Morning. We're in Abuja, Nigeria's capital. It's a great day. I mean, the night after, some people would call it. Yesterday was very pivotal and historical for Nigeria. It's probably not out of place to say it was a landmark for the country, regardless of what side of the divide you belong to, because ultimately this has to be about Nigeria. Yesterday was Judgment Day, quote and unquote, because that was when the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal, some say courts, delivered verdicts in several of the cases or the matters that had been brought before it on account of the the presidential election. We understand that across several states, judgments had also been delivered yesterday, whether it was gubernatorial elections or National Assembly elections, in some cases states assembly elections. But overall, we have seen a pool of reactions trailing yesterday's judgment. It was quite exhaustive and exhausting at the same time. It took a long time, several hours. I mean, the whole judgment delivery started in the morning and ran late into the evening. And today we know better. Judgments have been delivered. All of the matters, all of the prayers, they've been exhausted, including the issue of 25% votes in the FCT. But there was one in particular that stood out for many Nigerians, the latitude that the judgment says INEC has as the umpire to, at its discretion, determine by what means it would transmit results. And the judgment says INEC, that is the Independent National Electoral Commission, is not under compulsion to be restricted or constrained to using a particular mode. So depending on circumstances, depending on the peculiarity of whatever challenge it may be dealing with at any point in time, the judgment says the commission can decide what best option it can use under such, in such situations. But there are several other elements in yesterday's series of judgments. I mean, all five justices sat down and took time and energy to read out the judgments yesterday. For many people, it was a curve for Nigeria as a country and for democracy, as well as for our electoral process, because first, a few days before, news had come through that it would be broadcast live, and that was what we saw yesterday. For others, the enormity of interest, the intensity, all right, of with which people followed through the process, regardless of partisan affiliation, was also very instructive. But we want to look at all of that this morning, especially from the headlines we have across news dailies this morning. We'll do that for you right after this short break. Do stay with us. Let's begin with the Daily Sun newspaper this morning. As expected, very visible headline here reads, Tribunal affirms Tinubu's victory, refuses Atiku Obi's prayers on all counts in all-day judgment, rules winning 25% FCT votes not compulsory, LP rejects judgment, lawyers divided, president calls for collective efforts to build Nigeria as Sanwo-Olu hails victory. You would find details of that story on pages 6 and 27 of the Daily Sun newspaper. And then just beside the Daily Sun newspaper nameplate, Forex NERC hikes price of electricity meters. We understand that this development is already receiving so much of backlash as we speak. On the right end of the front page of Daily Sun, $14 billion investment pledge at Nigeria-India roundtable thrills Tinubu. Insurgency claims 35,000 lives in North-East. That's according to United Nations Commission on Human Rights. Okay. Unilag fee hike. Police disrupt NANS president. NANS protest. Arrest 4 students. That's on page 5 of the Daily Sun. Lagos Unilag fee hike. Police disrupts NANS protest. Arrest 4 students. Oga loses rep seat as Onyejocha is declared winner. NLC asks workers to resume work after 2-day warning strike. We understand incidentally that power has been restored in many parts of the country. Now, recall that over a 2-day period, there had been a warning strike called by the labor, which also occasioned power outage in most parts of the country on Tuesday and Wednesday. Tribunal sacks Delta Kogi senators, declares PDP's Natasha Akpoti winner in Kogi, affirms Warriors victory in Anambra. LG targets 5 billion naira cubic feet of gas per day by 2030. That's on page 29 of the Daily Sun. Let's take a look at the Daily Trust newspaper for you this morning. Okay, look at the big story there. Of course, you have one with a story, 100 days of courageous leadership, with a picture of President Tinubu there. Okay, but basically we have why we dismissed Atiku Obi's cases, tribunal. Join me in nation building, Tinubu tells opposition. PDP, LP rejects verdicts, APC hails judgment. Democracy, people have won. Buhari, judgment difficult to fault. Yadudu, ANEC fought petitioners to stand still. Ade Boruwa is the one who's saying that. Details on pages 3 and 4 of today's Daily Sun, Daily Trust newspaper. We also have the blueprint here. It says PPT judgments on 2023 polls, how Tinubu, Obi, Atiku won and lost. Tinubu, Shettima eligible. President cleared of drug-related offenses, fake certificate. INEC not compelled on e-transmission of results. FCT carries no special status on 25% constitutional requirements. Rejects 15 of Atiku's 27 witnesses. Bure Apapa differ. Ganduje Lord's Judiciary on pages 6 and 7 of today Blueprint newspaper. And we take it down. Here you find other headlines. Courts restrains Major Near Ghulam others as NNPP leaders. World Bank delays over $8 billion loan disbursements to Nigeria. That's on page 22. Labour warns FG of indefinite strike, orders workers to resume. FG to India investors. Nigeria offers best returns on investment. Lords India's $14 billion business plan. We understand the president is very excited about that. I mean, what more can we say? He didn't leave Nigeria all the way to Asia to come back with nothing. So it will appear there's already some breakthrough story coming through from the president's participation at the G20 summit holding in faraway Delhi, India. Okay, let's look at The Guardian newspaper this morning. Stakeholders raise concern over next hike in price of prepaid meters. That's on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. We understand this increase in the price of meter, that's prepaid meter, is occasioned by the difficulty in accessing foreign exchange, all right, by NERC. It's basically a concern that people have across sectors, not just in the power sector, but then it is specifically now also having adverse impacts on the power sector. Just imagine news coming out and saying that at least 40% increase, okay, is what we're now looking at with regards to the price of prepaid meters. That's quite astronomical. So it raises the question of how do we deal with forex paucity, if you like, going forward, because we can do next to nothing about our manufacturing sector until we're able to address core issues within around foreign exchange. Recall that for a country like Nigeria that largely depends on oil, it is quite a challenge, all right, to get to strengthen our naira against the US dollar, because our production capacity, or if you like, our production output, is quite abysmal. So what are the fundamentals that need to be addressed for us to be able to aggressively drive local production so we can earn in dollar? We must deal with the issue of power. Somebody jokingly said one time on the TV station that, look, the good book says in the beginning God made heaven and earth, and then of course he talked about lights, and then there was light. But in our case, we're not dealing with light first. We're pursuing other endeavors while we are neglecting the issue of power. At what point will Nigeria, and indeed Nigerians, say power has become what it ought to be at the least? We still live in a country where people celebrate big time if they can have power for just 12 hours a day. Of course, sadly, not every city in this country enjoys that kind of, if you like, luxury, because we see here of places where there hasn't been electricity for weeks, in some cases for months. We have seen instances where an entire community has not had a transformer for years. They have come out to protest, they have written to the authorities, and it will appear as if it's water being poured on rock. But then we must be deliberate, we must be intentional. We've been spending billions of dollars in a bid to fix power issues in this country, whether it's the $16 billion that we keep hearing about under the leadership of former President Olusegun Obasanjo, or all the other investments we've been making, including loans that we've taken over time. You want to think about that for a second. And then you move away from that, you're looking at some strategic partnerships that we say we've signed with some countries within and outside of Africa, with big companies, gigantic conglomerates that specialize within the power sector, even up to Siemens in Germany. What has become of all of these agreements? To what extent have we been able to get dividends from all of these efforts being made? And how come, in any case, nobody is being held accountable for all of these monies that we have spent? I remember one time, not too long ago, just a few years ago, the former president, Olusegun Obasanjo, was asked about the $16 billion, the independent power project. And he says, well, I can't talk about that issue because I've already addressed it in my book. That will naturally suggest that Nigerians, every Nigerian needs to go read his book to have a hang of how that money was spent. But all of these developments are only a pointer to the needs, the very urgent need to hold people accountable for whatever responsibility that they are saddled with. Otherwise, we'll continue to be a country that is only a giant on paper, but not in practice, not in reality. Again, power is important. Infrastructure, very, very important if we must be able to strengthen our dollar and then be able to compete. Nigeria should, in practice, be an emerging economy using all indices available. Okay, let's see what the Guardian. Tribunal sacks another Kogi senator, declares Akpoti Uduaghan winner. Okay, tribunal affirms Tinubu's victory, dismisses petitions. Having considered that all 3 petitions are devoid of merit, I hereby dismiss all the petitions, affirm the declaration by INEC that Ahmed Bola Tinubu is duly elected president of Nigeria. And that's quoting a portion of the judgments from yesterday, right there on the front page of the Guardian newspaper this morning, with pictures of President Bola Tinubu, Peter Obi of the Labour Party, and Atiku Abubakar of the People's Democratic Party there. Okay, let's turn to other headlines for you this morning. Why election matters are difficult to prove in court by Toyin Cole. I mean, that's a man who's been there, done that. Remember, Toyin Cole also ran against the current governor of Rivers State, all right, Fubara, just as part of the general election in 2023. So when he talks about what he refers to as the difficulty in proving election cases in court, one can deduce from that, amongst other things, that he is talking from his first-hand experience, because we keep hearing about technicality, pre-election matters, and then, of course, matters that are purely within the purview of political parties, and so on and so forth. But in all of these, certain facts are very clear, all right? Nigerians have to be patriotic. I mean, that was part of the reflection I did yesterday as I was following the judgment, and even far into the night after the judgment had been exhaustively delivered. Because when you look at it, are politicians patriotic, whether it is regarding issues within their respective political parties or issues that have to do with the electoral process? Are they patriotic? Those who work at INEC, top to bottom, what level of patriotism do they bring to the table? Those who work as agents on behalf of all the political parties participating in elections, are they patriotic? Nigerians who go to the polls to vote, are they patriotic? It has to be about patriotism. I've seen people who don't like Nigeria because of this president today and the other president tomorrow. I've seen people who don't like Nigeria because of their state governor. The sad thing, and again, at the same time, the good thing is, when it's all said and done, you are a Nigerian because you are a Nigerian. You are not a Nigerian because of your governor or because of the president you may not like, all right? Yesterday, after the judgment had been delivered, President Tinubu took out time to hail the judgment as expected, but he also said something very instructive. He says, going forward, all hands must be on deck to build Nigeria, all right? Let's also be clear, for those who go to social media now to fight themselves and curse themselves out, when it's all said and done, politicians will always be friends at some point. And on that level, partisanship is not a factor, doesn't count. They will always be friends. Most of them attend, I mean, a good number of them attended same high school, same university, all right? They intermarry. So they are friends on many levels. They had worked in the same firms in the past, whether in Nigeria or abroad. In fact, in specific cases, they had been members of the same party over time. They may have had to split or path ways, basically because of interests. It doesn't change the fact that they still have their connects. It doesn't change the fact that they still know where they meet, all right? So let's not bring bad blood to the conversation. Yes, we have issues with the system. There are issues that must be addressed with regards to our electoral process. There are issues that INEC as the umpire must, without humility, take responsibility for. There are issues that the law enforcement agencies must be held accountable for. There are also issues for which Nigerians must be responsible for, because in the end, it's a collective ownership that we're talking about here. Let's talk about vote buying, for instance. It is not people from outside Nigeria that come to buy votes during elections. It is Nigerians. It is those who have stake in the election. It is the candidates. All right, it is the agents of the candidates, because the agents have people on the ground who do these things for them. I mean, the candidates, they have agents. They have those they use as proxies, all right, to manipulate the system, to circumvent the law, and so on and so forth. And speaking of the law, by the way, now we have the Electoral Act 2022. All right, which was signed into law by the president, former President Muhammadu Buhari at the twilight of his administration. That, we have been told, is a blessing, is a compliment to the Constitution, which, by the way, is a ground norm. However, where we realize that there are still gaps in the law with regards to the election or our electoral process to be plugged, by all means, we must find the courage. We must be, as I said, patriotic enough to plug those gaps so that Nigeria can be a progressive nation. We need to build confidence in the electoral process. That's one of the issues we're having. Of course, granted, there's no rule anywhere that says that if people feel aggrieved about the outcome of an election, they can't go to court. In fact, courts, as they say, or the court is the last hope, or the judiciary is the last hope of the common man. So they can always go to court and challenge the outcome of any election, Of course, they must do that within the ambit of the law. It is not negotiable. It is not subject to debate. However, you need to make deliberate efforts to strengthen democratic institutions and to build confidence in the process in such a way that we should come to a point where if you lose an election, you already know, because you trust the system enough, that you actually lost. But what we have found since 1999 till date, this is 24 years and counting, is a situation where somebody loses an election because they can't trust the system. They still want to go to court. We should come to a point where you don't want to go to court because first, you know it's a waste of time and other resources of the court and, of course, the country. So you put the country first. You realize that it is bigger, the country is bigger than your ambition. Former President Jonathan showed that example in words and in practice. It's not worth the blood of any Nigerian. And we know what he did in March of 2015 when he picked up his phone and he called former President Muhammadu Buhari to concede and, more importantly, to congratulate him 8 years ago. And I'm wondering how many politicians are alive today who are still throwing their hat in the ring would have done the same given the same exact circumstances. I'm sure that's something we should ponder on following the judgments that were delivered yesterday. We're taking a quick break now. When we return, we'll be looking at more papers for you. Do stay with us. We'll take a look at the Punch newspaper now. The Punch is loaded, more than ever before today. The top, just above the nameplates, there it says consumers protests as FG hikes electricity meter price by 40%. We brought you the story earlier. NNPCL forced sale of NAOC assets to Ondo. Gas revenue drops by 3.3 trillion naira in 12 months. That's in 1 year, according to reports. So what happened? What led to that drop? Because it's quite significant, upwards of over 3 trillion naira. So what do we do to further strengthen revenues from that stream? It's crucial going forward. Atiku Obi plan appeal as election tribunal dashes bids to sack Tinubu. Atiku Obi's rigging allegations not proved. E-transmission not compulsory, says PPT. It's victory for democracy. Tinubu APC held judgments. LP Atiku film fought tribunal. If you come down to the foot, just go down to the foot of the front page of today's Punch newspaper. Tribunals. APC loses 2 National Assembly seats. PDP wins 1. 17-year-old boy locks in parents, steals car, others. That story is very interesting. I was looking at it this morning, and it was a bag of mixed feelings for me. For those who didn't follow the story or who are altogether not aware of it, it's just about a 17-year-old boy who decides to wake up one early morning, and then he locks his parents, his dad and his mom, had them trapped indoors. But before he did that, he had picked the car keys, and then 3 mobile phones and 2 power generating sets. All right, and he left the house. As expected, his parents made an entry at the police station. This happened in Ogun State, by the way. Made an entry at the police station, and the police got to work in a bid to find him. And those efforts paid off because they eventually found him in Lagos at a point where he was sourcing buyers for the items. Incidentally, he had already sold one of the power generators before he got apprehended. However, the police brought him over to Ogun State with those items that he had recovered, and we may not have a handle on what exactly was his motivation, but according to the police public relations officer in Lagos State, his father, and the police say, since it's a family issue, and second, the police would not want to be seen as being overbearing. They had to cancel him, they had to caution him, and they had to put in front of him the implications of his action, especially if there's a repeat of it. But there's something interesting. First, look at his age. He's 17. And the people from whom he stole these items are his parents, his biological parents, not foster parents, not neighbors, not caregivers, his parents. All right, two things, his age and the people from whom, I mean, you may call them his victims, he stole these items. And then you are also asking yourself, number three, what exactly was the motivation? What was he going to do with the money? Is it possible there was something he needed that his parents could not give him? Was it tuition he wanted to pay? Was it admission he was seeking for? It's all a reflection of the challenge, the daunting task of parenting in the age of the Gen Zs. And for those who keep priding themselves in saying they are Gen Zs, I'm sure we need to look at the values that drive whatever conversation that we are having, because naturally, people find it much easier, especially young people, because they're impressionable, to learn from bad examples than the right ones, than the good ones, than the positive ones. All right? Because whether you like it or not, I mean, whether you are a Gen Z or a millennial or whatever demographic you fall into, you must realize that there are sterling qualities that we must learn from people. Resilience, vision, focus, hard work, delayed gratification, and so on and so forth. I mean, this fella, as they would call him in the US, obviously does not have. What are you stealing 3 mobile phones for? What are you taking 2 power generators for? What is the ultimate goal? I mean, if you had even succeeded selling all of these items you had stolen from the house, what would you do with the money? Because there's a pretty good chance you blow up the entire cash, and then when you're broke to 1,000 naira or to nothing, worse still, you're coming back home to the same parents from whom you've stolen. Assuming you have other siblings and they all decide to wake up one morning and pick whatever items they deem fit from your parents, what would be left for them? All right, so I'm sure these are points of reflection for not just children, but also parents, because we can't have a healthy, vibrant society if we don't have families that are built on strong value system. It's very instructive to understand that, right? Okay, we'll take our time now to look at just one more headline today from the Punch newspaper. MMIA fire air traffic controllers relocate to Mobile Tower. That's based on the directive from the Honorable Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development. Okay, but that takes us to the next paper now, Tribune, Nigerian Tribune. To this issue of it, we'll look at the stories just above the nameplates with a picture of Minister of Power here. It says $14 billion new investment at Nigeria-India Roundtable excites Tinubu. FG increases price of prepaid electricity meters. Single-phase meter now 82,000 naira. Three-phase 143,000 naira. That's on page 6 of today's Tribune. Nominations open for 2023 Obafemi Awolowo Leadership Prize. Read up details on page 8 of the Tribune. Then one headline with a picture of Natasha Akpoti here. Tribunal declares Natasha Akpoti Ali winner of Kogi Central Oyo South senatorial polls. Nigeria only OPEC member without shipping line. Oyetola, should that give us concern or not? Apparently out at the OPEC level now, can we? PEPC affirms Tinubu's victory, dismisses Atiku Obi APM's petition, says FCT has no special voters. Insists fine by U.S. court didn't disqualify him. Asserts INEC can be forced to electronically transmit election results. Rus Shetima eligible to contest. Tinubu hails judgments, asks challengers to put patriotism over partisan consideration. LP rejects judgments. A Papa faction endorses verdicts, because Labour apparently also has its home battle to fight. There is a clear-cut division in the party. You have the Papa faction, then you have the Aburi faction. They have a bunch of litigations in court as we speak. But let's also not forget in a hurry how that Labour was a fundamentally defining element in the run-up to the 2023 general election. Even in the middle of the election, as we speak today, the Labour Party is still a huge factor in the narrative. You can't take that away. As a matter of fact, it was the People's Democratic Party and the Labour Party that actually had gone to court following the declaration by INEC of Bola Tinubu as the winner of the presidential election. Okay. Then we look at one more here. It says shake-up in customs as acting CG redeploys area controllers. Okay, PEPC, we've brought you that story already, but then we have three more headlines just at the foot of today's Tribune. How fire incident created panic at Lagos airport. Students protest over fees at Unilag. 5 escape death, property destroyed as flood ravages Ekiti. Okay, then we have our last paper here today is News Direct. We'll look at the major headline on the front page of News Direct. Knox applauds as tribunal opposed victory of President Tinubu with 4 riders. Affirms FCT as a state, dismisses special status, says INEC can't be forced to transmit election results electronically. Faults Labour Party for failing to give credible evidence. APC Governor Abiodun, Governor Sanwo-Olu congratulates Tinubu Shetima. Details on page 3 of News Direct newspaper. Above the nameplate, Nigeria suffers $100 billion loss to insecurity in 13 years. That's according to UNICEF. Okay. At the bottom, just by the foot of it, NERC hikes price of electricity meters by 40%. NERC hikes price of electricity meters by 40% on page 16. Police arrest 2 protesters at Unilag over tuition fee hike. FMDQ records $44 billion foreign exchange turnover in 7 months. FG links $1 billion agreement to boost local manufacturing of defense equipment. Okay, that's all for the papers this morning. I will take a quick break now. The conversations here on Global Television continue. I'm Uya Agumofwegbe. Do stay with us.